Okay, so now that we have our React app, when you open your folder, the folder created by Create React App for you, you'll find a few other folders like the SRC folder, the public folder. Would talk about the public folder in another class, but actually this is where it all starts from. This is where it's at this point, this particular element, that React attaches every other thing you'll be doing in JavaScript too. So React is taking these root elements and adding several other components inside it dynamically. You know, normally in your HTML, you're going to be adding another div, you're going to be nesting divs, nesting paragraphs, nesting spans, right? React does that for you automatically. All you need to do, or all React would have done for you, is to create a div with an ID called root element. It comes here inside your SRC, and it says I'll be attaching myself to an element by ID root. And then it says I'll be attaching the app component, and then we'll go ahead, we check the app component, that's your app.js. This is where you're going to be adding everything you'll be doing. You're later going to have more components that are going to be adding inside this component to make it bigger. But yes, you can now break down your interfaces into smaller components that you can put into the app component. Does that make sense? Okay, so you understood the part where we are going to be attaching everything you'll be doing in React to the root element, right? And inside that index.js, we said that it is going to be rendering the app component. These are all generated by React, so I don't think for now you should bother yourself about it. But the most important thing here is it's saying I'm going to be attaching the app component, and we're going to be inserting it inside the root element. So now this is your app component. You can see that you're importing app from app, and app here is inside SRC folder. That's your app.js. You can see that this is how your app.js looks like. So whatever you see here is what you're going to find in your root element in your HTML DOM. Does that make sense? So whatever you edit here is what is going to show on your browser. So the first thing I want to show you in React is how to import your CSS file, how to use it. There are several ways to add CSS to React, but for a starter, I'm just going to show you how to add your normal CSS file like you would have done in HTML. You know, in HTML, you use a link, a link tag. In React, you're not using a link tag. You're just importing the file straight away. Is this better? Yes, I believe. So yeah, let's create a CSS file here. Let's call it new.css. And then you come back to your app.js and you import new, you import /new dot CSS, right? So you know, I told you that in your normal HTML you would have class, but in React, what do you have? Class name. Those are just the few differences you would observe in between JSX and normal HTML. Like I said, this is JSX because it is inside JavaScript. By default, you cannot have HTML inside JavaScript, but React would transpile that for you by default. Every time you write JSX, which has almost the same syntax as HTML, it will transpile it and convert it to normal HTML. So everything that has class name, it will change it back to class. Those are the basic few differences between JSX that is outputted by React and your normal HTML. So now that you've imported your CSS, what that simply means is you can write your normal CSS in your CSS file, attach IDs and classes, but this time around, instead of class, you use class name. You use ID in React, yeah. Just ID. No, there was never ID name. Oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, it's still ID. ID doesn't change. So let's just play around with this. This is Avakpo and Cynthia's wedding. Oh, sorry, first React app. We come here. We had, let's say, an ID. We say, what do we call it? Let's call the ID wedding. I don't expect anybody to laugh. And then So now you have passed this stage already, right? Color. Aquamarine. You'd like to do it in a riverine area? So I can't see that clearly anyways. I should use violet.
Wait, sorry. So the initial CSS.
Go ahead. The initial what? Go ahead, ask your questions, please.
Okay, what I was just I was showing how white empty. Okay.
I didn't get that. Okay, yeah. So basically, that's how to import your CSS for now. For now, the CSS you import is not scoped. What that means is, if you create any other components and you insert them in app.css, they will still take that CSS property if they have that ID wording or class wording. Let me use class wording so that. So I've changed it to class now.
Class or class name?
Class name, thank you. Beautiful. So, can we move ahead?
Yes, you were explaining something about the CSS if you import.
Okay, when I get there, I will explain again. Okay, go ahead.
Does it work the same way two classes and does it work the same way CSS?
Exactly, it works exactly the same way. So, you know you wrote your class name here as wedding, but you came to new.css and you did .wedding. Because after...
What about that app.css?
It's another CSS file that was created by React. You can delete it if you want. Okay. But I want to use it for something. I have a...
You cannot use the same way when you're writing an ID. The same way you
Yes, you can use... An ID should represent just one.
CSS. Can you use CSS?
Yes, we have new.css here and we have app.css here. Those are multiple CSS files. I can have styling for this image, which you'll see soon, and I can have styling for this paragraph tag, which you also see soon. So, how do I import an image into my React component? That's another thing I want to quickly show you. As you can see here, Ovap already sent me a burger. I don't know if this is a burger, a donut. It's a donut, but since I've called it a burger, it becomes a burger. And then I saved it in my documents, in React class folder, in my web, and I saved it in src folder, and I called it burger.png. Now, to import burger, I need to use an image tag. Can you see this? Image tag. The src is still the same like your HTML image, but now it's taking in a JavaScript name. That's why it's in curly braces, because we are importing the image as, should I say components? No, we are importing it as a variable. So we are importing it from wherever we saved it. Import burger from, remember how we locate our files? /burger.png. So it's more like you're saying burger is equal to this entire image. I saved it in a variable, and then I'm using that variable in my image src.
So for every time you are going to import an
Image.
you have to do this.
Yes, import it like this. Give it a variable name, or whatever name you call it is what it will be called. So well, I said it was burger. Now I realized it's not burger. I can now say donuts. And then you see that it's not brightly colored. That's because I declared it and I'm not using it. So I declared this image as a variable. Now I want to use it here, and it will throw me an error because it will now start saying it's looking for burger and it cannot find burger. Burger is not defined. Line 9:19. It's easier to debug React apps. You know where your errors are. So you're saying burger is not defined, line 9. I'm sure if you count from here, it will be 19 spaces. So let's change this back to donut, and bam, this is what we have. So you've been able to understand how to import CSS that is not scoped for now. That means your CSS file will affect every component. I would explain further. You now know also how to import your pictures in React. Let me just show you how to add some more components into your app.js component, shall we? Okay, so to create another component, let's call it header. So we want to have a header. You know, normally your header would have your menu tags, your hamburger icon and likes, right, Cindy? Okay, so we have header.js, and then for every of your components, it's important you import React from React. Remember, it's a React component, right? And then normally in JavaScript, you create functions. I want you to see every React component as a function that is only returning JSX or transpired HTML. So how would you normally create a function? It's very simple. Constant header is a function, right? And I am saying whatever I put here, I have to return something, right? So I am returning a div that says this is where the header stays. Remember, this is a function. It only stays within this file until it is exported, right? Exports. I will talk about export default and export named exports later on, but for now, just do export default header. Now, this file or this module has become available to your React ecosystem in your React app for exports. So you can go back inside app.js and now import. Take note, you exported the components, right? Then you can import it somewhere else. Make sense, Cindy? So you come here and you import header from, thank you. Where's our header now? So the way your compiler works in React, it can ignore the extension, that's .js. And how do you, now, you know, you've imported it, but you've not rendered it. Is that true? That's why it's saying that header is declared, but its value is never read. So for every of your imports, it must be useful, right? You now decide where you want to put your header. We can put it here. See how you render a component? Doing this, you have rendered your header. So imagine you have 10 pages you want to work with. Your index page, your about page, your contact us page, your support page. You don't need to be copying thank you. You just keep rendering your header in all of them. Exactly, that's all. Just keep rendering your header in all your pages. Cindy, does that make sense? Can you see that? So let me make it, since it's header, let me make it H1. Cool stuff, right? You do same with footer. So as we proceed in the next class, we'll talk about routing in React so that you can move from one page to another, and then you keep importing header in each of those pages. You also keep importing footer in each of those pages, and you still keep writing your normal JSX, which looks like HTML and CSS.
Basically, the difference